AI, is it an expensive luxury or is it a new necessity? Let me share with you 3 articles I read this week that really made me stop and think about, is AI a tool for everything, or is it an expensive luxury that adds complexity to our lives? Will we need it, or is it additional? The first article that I read was really an article that pointed to a white paper that was really fascinating. It's the Public AI White Paper, a public alternative to private AI dominance. It was put out by 4 authors from the Bertelsmann organization. It's a really long paper, but it's definitely worth a read. Let me tell you what it's about to intrigue you into reading it. It talks about how public AI goes beyond open source AI. So I've talked a little bit about what is open source AI and what does it mean. Public AI is bigger. It talks about not only can you copy it and use it, but it talks about the whole system and does it serve the public and is it under public control? And in order to accomplish that, they call for a much more active role of government in ensuring that this public AI is possible. They stress that the goals are not to compete with commercial systems, but really to support alternatives to those commercial systems. And in order to serve the public interest, those alternatives should contribute to public goals like civic participation, social relationships, or improving the quality of life. One of the reasons I think you should read it is they gave a really nice overview of AI systems and how they work, and they broke it down into like the 3 core components of compute, data, and models. So if you struggled to understand AI or struggled with how to explain it to somebody else, I thought they gave a really good overview. They make 3 core policy recommendations. One is to develop and strengthen the fully open source models and the open source ecosystem. And they talk about how we don't really have many fully open source models, but they recommend encouraging more of them and helping them be strong. Number 2, they recommend providing compute infrastructure that supports the development and use of those models. They talk about how infrastructure is very expensive and very difficult to obtain for open source software projects, for nonprofits, for research institutions, and they recommend government support, maybe not government-owned infrastructure, but government support to support this public AI. The third thing that they recommended is scaling investments in the people and systems that will create these AIs. So we need to make sure that there's sufficient talent in the world to develop AI and to create a public AI model. They recognize that public AI is complicated. And so instead of having like a single definition that says you are a public AI system or not, they created this gradient of publicness. It was like 6 levels, and it spans from like a fully private model to a fully public model. And I should stress again that they were not anti-commercial, they were not anti-private. They were just saying that we need this public AI system as well to balance out the world and to make sure that we serve the public good. They didn't shy away from some topics that I thought were really difficult, like they took a stance on the open source AI definition. They talked openly about copyright issues in the data that might be being used to train AI models. They talked about sovereign AI, government owning an AI system, and how that wasn't necessarily the complete solution to a public AI. They also had like a huge list of other papers and research that they quoted throughout the paper and then provided on each page for additional reading. I thought they were all really valuable resources. I put a bunch of them on my reading list. One of the statistics that struck me is that 2/3 of the money raised by AI startups in 2023 was given by these cloud companies that provide the hardware and the infrastructure to run AI. And so of that money that's raised, like 80 to 90% of it went back into the people that invested in it. So super wise decision by those cloud infrastructure companies. Invest in these startups that are going to then generate huge demand for your services. So food for thought there. So again, this was a super long paper, but I highly recommend reading at least the executive summary and then some additional chapters that you might be interested in. I'm curious what you think the biggest public benefit from public AI might be. The second paper that made me start thinking about whether AI was something we needed or whether it was a luxury was a LinkedIn post from Manuel Kistner. He wrote that AI was going to become so expensive for daily tasks because AI is so expensive. Remember, we're using all of this infrastructure. That he thought that people that could write code, analyze it, write code, and everything without these subscriptions would be able to command premium rates because their time would be worth more than what AI charged. I really disagree with this. I think AI is very heavily subsidized right now. We know that the AI infrastructure companies are investing in the AI startups and then selling them back their services at discounted rates. But I do think it will just get cheaper over time as the components that it takes to run it get cheaper. And I don't think that humans will be able to compete on these very repetitive computerized tasks. There's no way that a human could charge less for doing all the calculations by hand that a calculator does. I think in the future, if you want to make money, you need to learn how to use AI systems very wisely and efficiently, and that will benefit you much more than doing everything by hand. Now, I do think that knowing everything by hand means you understand the system and you can use the AI system more wisely, but I don't think you'll be doing all of those calculations or all of that writing or all of those systems by hand anymore. I think you should use AI where it's available. The third article that I read was a post by Philippe Ombredanne, and I'm so sorry, Philippe, I'm sure I mangled your name, but he is working on tools that will detect whether or not code was written by AI tools. There's a lot of tools out there to detect whether writing is written by AI, but this is a tool that detects whether code is written by AI. I think this is useful to understand whether we can detect whether AI wrote it or not. It's definitely interesting and useful to know where it came from. It's definitely extremely interesting to be able to evaluate the quality and the security and any potential copyright issues of any code you use, whether it's written by AI or not. But the question that really came to my mind as I read the post and then looked at this set of tools is does it matter whether it was written by an AI or by a human? We still have all the same issues. So if the AI is generating poor code that has poor security, that's obviously an issue. But if a human is writing code that has poor security, that's also an issue. If an AI is violating copyright, that is an issue. But if a human is violating copyright, that is also an issue. So maybe we would check for different things or put emphasis on different types of checks if we know it was an AI or a human creating it. But in the end, I think we need to check for all of it. More problems that we can automatically detect better, whether it was an AI or a human. So I'm curious, do you think it's important to invest resources in figuring out whether things were created by AI or humans? Even if you think of images, we care whether the image is a real image or not, especially if it's in our news feed. Does it matter if an AI tweaks the image and made it look real or if a human did it? I mean, an AI can do it faster, so it's more likely to be an issue, but it doesn't really matter in the end whether the AI created the fake image or whether a human created the fake image. It's the fake image that's a problem. Those were the three articles that really made me think this week about whether AI was an expensive luxury or a necessity. Please drop your comments in the chat or write your own posts about it or engage me on LinkedIn or wherever else you may find me. Talk to you later.